Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. We have a very, very special guest, Christian Busch, as you all are aware. And I am the co-founder of Learn with Leaders. My name is Gunjan Agarwal. I welcome Christian and all the students who made time. I know for some of you it's late in the evening, but it's a pleasure to have you here. A quick introduction of Christian. I'm sure you've heard about his book, The Serendipity Mindset, and the assignment he had given. He's also a faculty director at New York University for the Global Economic Program, and he's a visiting faculty at London School of Economics. I think what I love about Christian is the fact that he teaches us about luck and how, especially in India, Christian, luck is a big thing. Like, superstitions, bad luck, bad omens, that's really ingrained into our culture, and breaking that for students is very important because they believe they're born with a certain luck. So over to you, Christian. And again, a big thank you from the entire team at Learn with Leaders for making time for us today.
Thank you so much, Gunjan, and well, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you today. I've heard great things about you. So I'd really love to also make this a very interactive setting and really kind of, getting to know each other a little bit, seeing where I can be part of your exciting journeys also. I'd love to learn a bit more. Do one or two of you maybe very briefly kind of say, what is your dream? What do you want to do in the world? And essentially, what brought you here? Who feels like they want to?
Christian, maybe I can moderate that for you. I'll give that to Ramakrishna first. And please, I request you to switch on your videos. He has been diligently waiting for the past 45 minutes. So I would want him to start and tell us a little bit about himself and where he comes from.
Excellent.
Good evening,
Hey,
sir.
Rama. Hello.
I'm from India. I come from Oak Ridge International School. So I frequently aspire of becoming, something related to aerospace engineering and stuff. So I was possibly thinking of studying something like chemical engineering or electrical engineering. And I consider my hobbies as reading books or listening to music.
Wonderful.
That's
Perfect.
great, Rama. Now I would, do you want to raise your hand? Who wants to go next? Or I could just do a random call. Okay, Adrika Rahman.
Hi, I'm from Bangladesh and I'm currently in grade 11 in IB. So I really want to work and do something in the field of economics, but at the same time, I'm really interested in writing poems. So I see myself publishing an anthology of poems or something in the future. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Adrika. Okay. Torsa Ghosh.
Well, my name is Tosha Ghosh. I'm a student in Euroschool, and I'm in grade 12, and I'm looking forward to a career in either law or psychology. And my hobbies are singing, reading, and writing. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Torsa. Kian Jagtiani wants to go next.
Okay, hi, I'm from Bangalore and I go to Inventure Academy. So my interests include like astrophysics and economics. So I'm hoping to find some sort of combination or either one of them separately as like a career and for like future studies. And my interests and like hobbies include playing sports, which would be table tennis, basketball, and bowling. And I just love listening to music and just finding cool stuff to do other than that.
Thank you, Kian.
Shrey.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Hi, my name is Shrey Arora, and I'm from India, Mumbai. I'm from Singapore International School. So basically, I aspire to be a filmmaker. I love watching films, and I also like reading books. But majorly, I'm a lot into filmmaking, and I really want to do something in that field. And other than that, my hobbies are also playing cricket, playing tennis, basically, and I also like listening to music. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Shrey. Francesca, did you want to go next? Yes.
Hi, my name is Francesca. I go to the American School of Bilbao in Spain, but I've been traveling my whole life. So yeah, and I would like to study in the field of global economics or international business.
Wow, that's awesome, Francesca. Lovely to know that. Anaina Dalal.
Yeah, hi. I'm Anaina. I'm from Ahmedabad, India. I study in the Riverside School. And my hobby, so I would also like to become a filmmaker or a screenwriter. I think one of the main things I like doing is learning about other people, telling stories, and I also like dancing, reading, singing, and yeah, thank you.
That's brilliant. Thanks a lot. Me, am I pronouncing your name right? Irikanami?
Yeah, it's Irakami.
Thanks.
Hi, hi, Dr. Bush. I'm Irakami. I'm a student from Canada. My interests sort of revolve around engineering, specifically mechanical. My dream is to sort of be an engineer that's also an entrepreneur, and sort of make vehicles, cars, consumer technology, that sort of thing. I enjoy reading a lot about new technologies, new phones, computers, anything like that. I could probably talk for more than an hour about any of those topics. So that's really what drives me. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks. Thank you. Anusha, you're up next.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Anusha from Chennai, India. I'm also an IB diploma student and I'm a classical dancer. I love to read, and my academic interests are history and economics. But I think that depends on the day. So today it's history and economics.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Awesome. So I think none of you really mentioned a big dream. So does anybody want to mention like a dream that you have rather than the subjects or the college or the careers you want to take? None of that. A dream. Okay, I'm going to pick somebody to tell me their dream. Kabir, Goel, tell me your dream. Switch on your video, please.
So I've always dreamed of like inventing something new that would really make advancements. I've always been interested in AI, so I guess developing something in AI then is a dream.
Okay, that's a nice dream. Thank you, Kabir. I think you're our youngest participant today.
Yeah, I'm in grade 6.
Yes, thanks, Kabir. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. Well, it's amazing to see such a breadth of interests and passions, and kudos to all of you, to really exploring this. And one of the beautiful things in life is that you get the opportunity to explore what you like, what you don't like, and some of the things we'll talk about today as well. Gunjan, does it make sense if we do a brief kind of overview and then we can dive into more of a conversation?
Yes,
what
absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we could go through their opinion on the piece you sent for them to read, and we could discuss that and then just dive into more conversations around it, or whatever everybody would like to do.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, that sounds really good. So if we do a brief big picture overview and then dive into the piece, that sounds really good. And I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone thinks. And to give you a bit of background into this, it really started when I was in high school. I used to be this completely rebellious kid. I was thrown out of school. I had to repeat a year. I was the kind of troublemaker that any parent, it's a nightmare for any parent, as you can imagine. And I transferred this into my driving style. I probably held the unofficial world record of how many dustbins you can knock over on your way to school. And then one day I wasn't so lucky anymore, and I crashed into 4 parked cars. I had driven too fast, and it was a bit of a kind of race with a friend of mine, which I can certainly not recommend. That's far too dangerous. And so I smashed into 4 parked cars, and all cars completely destroyed, including my own. And I won't forget the policeman who came to the scene, and he said, "Oh my God, he's still alive." And so, this idea that I was supposed to be dead, that stuck with me. And, I asked myself all these weird questions, if I would have died, who would have come to my funeral? Who would have actually cared? Was it all worth it? And, it was a lot of depressing answers at that point, where I was like, oh, wow, my life so far didn't have that much meaning, actually. And so I started reading a lot of books. And one book actually that I would highly recommend to you is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which is all about the question, how do we in the toughest of moments still somehow find some kind of meaning? I mean, I had that again last year. I had COVID, and it was a really bad period. where, you know, I couldn't breathe a lot and those kind of things. And I reread the book, and it kind of brought that back to say, hey, look, maybe there's still something in this moment that is somehow meaningful. And so I can highly recommend that book. And, you know, I started reading it, and what I realized is what I enjoy doing the most is connecting people, connecting ideas, and seeing how I can initiate some kind of change with that. And so, you know, starting out as community builder, entrepreneur, and later in research, what I found really interesting is that the most successful, joyful, purpose-driven people, they seem to have something in common, which is that they intuitively see something in the unexpected. They see something in uncertainty and then turn that into positive outcomes. And so that's really what serendipity is all about. It's saying, hey, how do we essentially, you know, take some kind of cue, right? Some kind of unexpected events, and then turn that into something by connecting the dots. And, you know, take an example. I mean, some of you, you know, talked about how you have an interest in science, right? So if you think about up to 50% of inventions and innovations in science, they happen serendipitously. They happen as a coincidence where, you know, if you think about penicillin, who of you knows penicillin? Anyone? The antibiotic? Or who of you has ever taken antibiotics? Yeah, yeah. So the gentleman you have to thank for this, Alexander Fleming, you know, a couple of decades ago, he left some stuff he was experimenting with outside. He went on holidays, he came back, and there was some kind of bacteria around it. And he realized, oh my God, actually, if I can make those kind of die, like, hey, maybe there's something in there that we can do with it. And so he coincidentally discovered the kind of penicillin that emerged. And you will see that, you know, with a lot of inventions and innovations, that's exactly what happens. Something goes wrong in an experiment, and then they see something in that moment, they see something in that opportunity and do something with it. And, you know, if you think in your own lives, right, how maybe you developed an interest, maybe you fell in love coincidentally with someone you bumped into, whatever it is, right? Those kind of things a lot of times happen coincidentally. And so a lot of our work is about this idea that how can you do something with those unexpected moments? How can you do something and really turn that into something positive? And so that article that I shared with you is really also a lot about that question. How do you essentially create your own luck? And you know, the key idea behind this is really to say that when you ask the most interesting people in the world, you know, what made you successful, they will talk a lot about both hard work and luck, right? But they usually see it as two different things. And they say, yeah, like I just had a little bit of luck. But actually, when you dive deeper, you will see that a lot of times, actually, it was that they worked really hard to have more luck. And so to give you one experiment, who of you considers yourselves to be lucky? Who of you thinks they're a lucky person? Yeah, some of you. Okay, so we have a half lucky course. That's great. And the reason I'm asking you this is because, you know, one of the most important things when you think about something like luck is about the way you look at the world. Because, you know, if you look at the world and you don't expect something good to happen, a lot of times actually it won't happen. So I want to give you an example. Imagine there's two people. So they did an experiment with two people. One person who identifies as very lucky. So one person who says, good things always happen to me. And one person who self-identifies as very unlucky. So someone who says, bad things always happen to me. I'm always in accidents. And we all know those kind of two people, right? Like we all know people who are, you know, the kind of ones that have that positive, and then others who have the opposite. And so they tell both people, walk down the street, go into a coffee shop, grab a coffee, and then we'll have our interview. What they don't tell them is that there's a £5 note, so money, in front of the door. And inside the coffee shop, there's one seat free next to this extremely successful businessman who can make big dreams happen. So now the lucky person walks down the street, sees the £5 note, picks it up, goes inside the shop, orders a coffee, sits next to the businessman, has a conversation, they exchange business cards, potentially an opportunity coming out of it, we don't know that part. The unlucky person walks down the street, steps over the £5 note, so doesn't see it, goes inside the coffee shop, sits next to the businessman, ignores the businessman, and that's that. Now, at the end of the day, they ask both people, so how was your day today? And so the lucky person says, it was amazing. I found money in the street. I made new friends, and, you know, potential opportunity coming out of it. Now, the unlucky person just says, well, nothing really happened. And that's the thing, right? You can have exactly the same situation happen, but one of you sees something more in the moment. And when you go to school in the morning, for example, right? Like when you take maybe another road that's also safe, but you can, see something else in the windows, or this idea that like when you keep an open mind and your eyes open, a lot of times actually that's the moments where something interesting can happen. The same with your subjects, right? When you read into one subject and then you make an unexpected link to something else, that's where the most interesting ideas usually come from. We can talk more about this later. I just wanted to show you one example of how important it is that the way we look at the world actually then predefines a lot of how the kind of luck we can actually have in our life, and that it's not either or, right? It's not either luck or hard work, but it's about creating your own smart luck. And that's very different from blind luck, right? Blind luck is just being born into like a good family or something like that. You can't influence that, at least not that I know, but you can influence the smart luck. You can influence working hard for those kind of moments where you can make something happen. Now, before I talk more, let's dive a little bit into like your impressions of when you read the article, like what resonated with you. What are maybe also ways that you can see this apply in your life currently? Like, do you feel, when you're thinking about your activities, is there something in there that you can do differently, or other ideas that came up? Let's make that a conversation. What do you feel? What's your take on that?
Christian, I have a question here.
Mm-hmm.
The more I've been speaking to these students, I've probably interviewed myself 5,000 kids in the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I always hear them say, I knew I wouldn't clear it. I know I'll not make it. I know I won't get through. And, if something good happens in their life, they always say it's a coincidence and it wasn't, it's nothing, and they brush it off. I mean, how as these young teenagers, how should they understand, the coincidences and the luck? Because I think there's a very thin line in brushing it off as a coincidence and admitting it as luck, right? To yourself that, that it's a good thing that happened to me. I think what I found is kids find it hard to accept that something good happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're understanding where I'm coming from.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a great question. And what I would recommend is, doing a serendipity journal, like similar to how you would maybe do a diary or something, and then write down those moments, right? So write down the moments where something unexpected happens that was good, and maybe those moments where something unexpected happened and like you didn't do anything about it and you felt, oh, I could have done something, right? And then think about what is it behind that? Which action did you take? So let's say, let's say the coincidence, I don't know, take an example, right? I don't know if that is already on your radar. Those of you, who are already in age appropriate kind of areas there, but let's say you fell in love, right? And so let's say that moment you fell in love, so in my case, for example, right, if you have erratic hand movements, like you spill coffee a lot, right? So you kind of spill the coffee. And so imagine that moment, right? You're like in a coffee shop or in the school cafeteria or so, you spill a coffee, and the person next to you, you sense there might be some kind of connection. You don't know what it is, but you're just like, oh, maybe there is something. And now you have two options, right? Option number one is you just say, I'm so sorry, here's a napkin. You walk away and you think, what could have happened had I spoken with the person? And then option number two is you say, I'm so sorry, you start a conversation, and that person ends up to be the love of your life, or maybe the person you will do an activity with, whatever it is, right? And so these kind of things, in a way, when you think back to what you did in that moment, in that unexpected moment where the coffee was spilled, how did you react to it? And why did you react that way? And I've always found it very interesting then when you think about it, like how much did you have when you say in 2 years, oh, it was such a coincidence, I met the woman or the man I love at this point in the cafeteria. Think about, yes, it was coincidence that you ran into each other, but you actually did something about it, right? You had to go on a date together. You had to then kind of go on repeat dates to kind of in a way also build that relationship, right? And so really think about like, what is it in terms of your own actions that you did to make something out of that unexpected moment? And so I always find it very useful to then think about what were my own actions that really helped that versus what could I have done in those situations where I felt I didn't really act on it? And I think that's also important because, being honest, like in my case, for example, right, especially when I was younger, I always was quite confident, but I also always had a little bit of this imposter, like inner imposter syndrome where you're like, oh, I might not feel ready for this, or I might not be maybe I'm not the right person for this and this. And also working on those underlying questions, right? How can I build my self-confidence? That's extremely important because then we act on those moments. Otherwise, we might hold ourselves back, right? Even if we see something in a moment.
Exactly. That's what I felt like. I think we see them and we try to shut our eyes or give it some logical explanation of why it happened. And I think that probably starts reducing our ability to see those, serendipitous moments, right? Because the more we train ourselves that, oh, it's logical, or, it was just by chance, rather than acknowledging that I could have done something about it. That's great. So, okay, to hear to my really lovely students who would want to, come with an opinion on the article, you like to share something about smart luck, a point in your life where you felt like you recognize smart luck. We're all here to have this conversation. So, this is called a coffee session for a reason, but I'm the only one with a mug. But
I'll join you.
sure.
Cheers.
Okay, so who'd like to go next?
And I think just like one just philosophical thought on this, right? I don't feel there's good or bad ideas. I think like you can't go wrong. Whatever you're saying now, is the kind of thing where it's experience, right? Like you're just sharing whatever you feel makes sense. So please don't hesitate to share whatever you feel comes to mind.
Christian, you're absolutely right. I was reading this book by Rory Sutherland, and he says the opposite of a good idea can also be a good idea. And it's something I've been telling everyone I meet.
That's true. And a lot of times, like an idea that doesn't work, maybe was just not an idea for the context, right? Or it might work another time, exactly. Or you might learn something, so you can't lose, right?
Okay, Jesse and Shay. Jesse, you can go first.
So from what I've understood from what you've been saying and from the article, so this serendipity luck thing is pretty much taking chances, being more, I think, being more open to people and considering more people and just taking chances.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great observation. Thank you, Jesse. And that's really something where, if you think about the example we talked about earlier, right, with a coffee shop, it's exactly that where, that you actually speak with a businessman, like that's an important part of it, that you actually take a chance, right, on a conversation, or that you take a chance. I remember when I was applying to universities, my high school certificates were so bad, I had to send 50 or 40 applications to schools, right? And the point here is to not hesitate to just put things out there, and just see what happens, right? And as long as it's safe, as long as it's you can't take risk there. But and I think, Jesse, that's a great observation, right? It depends on us to actually take that chance. I think one of the things, just as a caveat, I'm a closet introvert, so I have, spikes of extroversion. So I love kind of being out there and give a presentation, and then I'm hiding in the bathroom because I'm oh my God, now I need to recover my energy, and now I need to, replenish my energy. And so I'm always looking also for opportunities where we can find positive, unexpected outcomes in calm sources and quiet sources, right? So in books or in movies or in the street, when we look at things open and try to connect dots. So there's also a lot of hope for introverts, by the way, in case if we don't necessarily want to talk with people that much, there's also a lot in books and so on. It's mostly about connecting the dots. But in the bigger picture, Jesse, you're completely right in terms of how much it is about taking a chance and really putting oneself out there. Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay, so Shrev.
Yes, ma'am. I have the same thoughts like what Jesse said and what So is saying. So basically, what I really liked about the article was the fact that it tells us about taking a chance. Basically, there's one thing about qualifications and whatever work we are doing and everything, but there has to be some amount of luck in every little thing that we do. And until we have some luck, we can't really actually do something or have some substantial work being done. And I have an example of that. I like this television show very much. It's known as Atlanta. So basically in that there was an episode in which the main protagonist was basically by chance he met a woman who was basically someone he hadn't known at all, but that woman recognized him and took him to be someone else, and took him to an area where all the businessmen were actually chatting. And so basically what he did was that he went with the flow and actually took that chance and actually made something substantial out of that, like exchanging business cards and actually talking and communicating with people. So obviously there's that extra step, which basically sometimes the opportunity arises to you and it's given to you, but it's always upon yourself to actually do something about this. And I think so that's something which really comes as a highlight of the article which you wrote. So I really like that about it. Yeah.
Thanks, Shay.
Thank you so much, Shay. That's an excellent observation. Also, I think in terms of when you think about this going with the flow part, right? In terms of really saying, because we want to map things out, right? We want to plan things usually, but real life is a lot of times about winging it, right? Real life a lot of times is about saying, oh wow, this is this situation, and now I make the best out of it, and not getting too anxious about that idea that this will happen a lot of times, right? And so I think the realization that it's not imperfection if things are not necessarily always just as we planned it, but actually that we have to go with the flow sometimes. So thank you, Sherry, for also those great points, and wonderful that you're inspired by that TV series. That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing.
Ariba?
Hi, Dr. Busch. Great article. Really loved all aspects of it. But the part that you wrote about success through serendipity, I could really relate to that because my cousin recently got a job in a bank and my uncle knows somebody in that bank. So a lot of people were saying that, oh, it's because he has contacts. But then I realized that it's not because he has, not just because he has contacts, because my cousin went up to that person and he said that, hi, I know you. And this is my portfolio. Do you think you'd like to hire me? So if they just knew each other, the guy who's like a big shot at the bank wouldn't approach my cousin. It's because my cousin approached him that he got the job. So this like really resonated with my life, and I showed it to him as well. I said, see, like this is what happened to you. So thank you so much for this, and it's amazing article.
Thank you so much, everyone. And this is such a wonderful observation, right? That in a way, a lot of times, especially when it comes to networks, right? The better networks we have, the more likely that we will get something nice. But it's a lot of times about our own actions, right? The same cousin who doesn't approach the other person will probably not get the job, right? So, my partner always says it beautifully, like, knowing someone might get you a foot in the door, but you have to step through it, right? You have to actually first go to the door, right? If you don't go to the door, like you can't really put a foot into it. And so it's really, Ariba, that's a perfect observation that a lot of times it's really about that proactive element behind it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Ariba. Sunaina, since you haven't got a chance to speak.
Hi, my name is Sunaina. I wasn't introduced properly before. I am in Oak Ridge International School too. So I'm a person who overthinks a lot of stuff. And by reading that article, I think I learned that I can take a chance once in a while and just go with the flow. And yeah, I don't have any real life experiences with serendipities, but yeah, I think I'll try for now. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sanaya. And please do keep us posted. Like once the first real life experiences happen, please keep us in the loop. And also, whatever you learn from it, I think that's going to be interesting, right? When the first times it happens, and then really reflecting on, oh, what was it that I did that allowed that to happen?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
Francesca?
Yeah, so through moving a lot, I really understood that making friends and keeping those connections was really important. And unconsciously, I actually was planning bombs and like you said in the article. So it really helps to see that connections even made in summer without any context, you can probably refine those people in the same area as you, or friendship groups in another place. And it's really interesting to see that. So I'm glad to be able to move around so much and meet new people and new perspectives.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Francesca. And that's such a great point in terms of how the people we connect with, right, predetermine a lot of what is actually possible, right? Because a lot of times we might be able to connect dots, but actually if we have others also around us who can connect the dots for us, that does a lot. And it sounds like, Francesca, you've had a lot of those experiences in your life. So kudos for that. And please do keep us posted.
So anyone I haven't given a chance to speak who's raised their hand before I give it to somebody who's already spoken? Please ping me because I am just looking. Okay, I think I've given a chance to almost everyone, right? Anaya Dalal?
Yeah, Anaina.
Anaina, so sorry.
Yeah. Um, so I think one of the things that stuck with me in the article was the fact that you can like initiate a conversation once you've been asked a particular question, because I'm not really good at that. So I do not know how to move a conversation forward, even if it's just small talk. So I think that's one of the things that stuck with me of how your own answer can be something that is interesting. And I think, like I said before, I'm interested in movies and I like watching them. So how you can make real life, like people always say movies are kind of unrealistic, but if you try you can kind of have those kind of conversations if you like. So I think that was the one thing I took away, that you can like have conversations and make them better if you want to.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is it's a great observation, and I highly recommend, like, you know, when you do a serendipity journal, one thing you can also do is to really write down your key interests and like key interesting hooks, right? So things that you in your own life feel are interesting whenever someone asks you, right? Like if you go to the uncle's friend or, you know, whoever you kind of meet and they say, oh, so how's school? You could always say, oh, it's interesting because I've been exploring how humankind can shape XYZ. You know what I mean? So something that in a way you're putting something interesting out there that someone then can pick up and say, oh, this is really interesting. Like, tell me more, versus like, oh yeah, like I'm okay. I'm in sixth grade and I'm happy. You know, like you're really kind of putting something out there where someone can then continue the conversation because they can build on something that you gave them. So, I mean, I thank you so much for this great observation. It's really giving people an excuse, right, to continue the conversation with you in a smart way. Thank you.
Thanks, Anaya. Anaya, which school you're from? I think I didn't get that.
I'm from the Riverside School.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you. Kian, have you got a chance to speak?
No, not yet. Okay. So
Okay.
I actually really agree with how you talked about you can create your own luck. Like a lot of people just believe that luck is completely different from effort. But like I actually think that based on how you exhibit yourself and like based on what you do, you can attract like people with similar ideas or like create experiences. So, like that was a really good thing for me in the article. And also one more thing that I realized was that like a lot of people think that they need to know someone who's like really successful in a field to be able to get like a good job or a good connection or something. But as long as you like efficiently create hooks or plant forms or whatever, but within your connection as well as other people, you know, you can actually really figure something out. So like, yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kian. And that's exactly, you know, one of the big learnings I think over the last years was exactly this, that, you know, we can't always choose the environment we're in. And you know, a lot of my work is in very resource constrained environments. So I do a lot of work in sub-Saharan Africa and like extremely impoverished communities, for example. And the base level of potential serendipity, so what you can have potentially, is of course much lower, right, than like someone like me who sits here with a lot of kind of network and education in New York. But actually, at the same time, the idea really is that we cannot always choose the situation, but what we can do is we can try to make the best out of what is at hand. And to your point, like that also includes then looking at our contexts that we have, where we might just be, oh my God, they can't do a lot actually. Well, but maybe you have to give them an opportunity to actually show that, right? So if you can, you know, and so for example, I was always surprised, you know, parts of my family, I would be like, well, you know, I'm not sure how much they could ever kind of do around XYZ things that I've been involved in. But actually then since I started, you know, like just from time to time mentioning this or mentioning this, it's interesting how much they kind of like, oh great, like we could do this and this. And so it's really kind of also building those hooks into conversations with people we know, and not expecting anything, but just also giving them the opportunity to potentially do that. So I think that's a great observation, Kian. Thank you to also, you know, like see that with our own context, there might be a lot that can be done.
I was actually trying to do an internship at this age. I'm currently in ninth grade. So I knew that I would not be given a chance in ninth grade. So none of us would get a chance, be it Google or at a startup. But in 2 to 3 days, I applied to over 100 internships and 100 companies. So, but I ended up getting contacted by one person. I don't know what did he even see in me and what I wrote in my application also. But I was given a chance. He, after asking my grade and what I've been doing, he told it was not possible. But then I actually approached him. I kept emailing him and I tried to call him as well. So he found that proactive approach in me to be good, and then he gave me a chance, and I was able to prove myself with that opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rama, for sharing. And that's such a great example, right, of how many applications you sometimes have to send to do that, right? And your tenacity is fantastic, right? To really kind of go through and fight for it. So thank you so much for sharing. I think that's a very inspiring example. You know, life will throw a lot of things at you, right? Life will have a lot of kind of like things that don't go as you planned them. You know, like you might not get into the university you always wanted to get into. You might not get the job you always wanted. You might not get the apprenticeship that you always were hoping for. And that's fine, because in a way, you know, just because something doesn't work out in this moment, a lot of times actually in the long run, you look back and you say, oh my God, I'm grateful this and this didn't work, because then I met this and this person because I was at this university, or I got this idea because I ended up here. And so it's really about this idea, that the bigger idea behind the serendipity mindset is to say that at the end of the day, you can never really fail if you're consistently seeing things that don't work as something that you can learn from. And then you reframe that and say, you know what, I'm learning from this rejection, you know what, fair, okay, I'm learning, next time I can do this and this better. And so as long as you do that, what's happening is that then, you know, a lot of times what will happen is that good things will, like in the example earlier, will over time happen. You know, there's this old saying that a happy ending depends on when you stop the story, and you can't stop the story too early. So it's really about the tenacity. It's really, I really, this is why I like Rama's example so much. We have to normalize the idea that we will not always be perfect. And I think this is something that, you know, then also decreases anxiety, right? Because, you know, the world is really in a bad place at the moment, right? A lot of bad things are happening. And so it's up to us to somehow still try to say, hey, how do we make the best out of this and do something with it? And really acknowledging this, right? Acknowledging that all of us are anxious from time to time, and that's fine. Like that's just how life is, and that's okay. And so I would always say, like, let's focus on the things we can influence. Of course, our mind will always go to a lot of things we can't influence, right? But then it's about saying, okay, how can I focus on those few things that I actually can influence and do something with it? And always taking the long view, right? Always thinking about, will this really matter in 30 years from now? If not, why do I get so anxious about it? And really kind of always taking that step back and say, you know what, this is bad, this grade is bad, but you know what, I will still make the best out of this. And then in 10 years, it might not matter as much as it feels it matters in that moment. But we can always choose our response to it. And that's our freedom, that's our liberty, and that's where you will have your serendipity. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, because indeed it is the only thing that ever has. It always seems we're very small in the universe, right? We are one out of so many billions of people. But actually, you know what? The real impact in the world is a lot of times shaped by very few people who really kind of go out there, get the right people together and do something about it. And so I do hope that, you know, some of you in the room will really go out there, you know, become those kind of astronomists and astrologists and scientists and, you know, all these big dreams that you have, and you know, it will not always be easy, and you know, as some smart people would say, you know, signing up for a meaningful life also sometimes means that you sign up for a little bit of pain during that life, right? It won't always be easy, but it's usually worth it. And so I think it's something where I hope that all of you will have that kind of meaningful journey, and yeah, please do make sure if there's ever anything that we can help you with, let us know. And
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. Have a good
Thanks,
one.
Christian. I think that was a really, really good closing remark, and I would sign off with that. I think signing up for a meaningful life is such a beautiful thought, and it could go a long way since you guys are just starting up your careers, your life. I think just sign up for a meaningful life. Thank you, Christian, for that great ending thought. And I am so grateful to this team again of students who've made it. I know it's late in the evening, but it is morning for Christian. So have a good day, Christian, and have a good evening to all of you.
Thank you. See everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.